A victory Monday for the fourth straight week. What's up? What's happening? It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Our left hands are up. Commanders have yet another victory. And to go with it, they have a playoff spot, Anthony. Also, the curse of Haney seems smashed. It helps if your microphone is on. I can't hear you. Nope. All right, we have a silent Anthony Haney. His microphone is cursed, but he is not, because he's been at the not the Cowboys. He was not there for the Cowboys game. Had he, they would have made the extra point, and the Terry miracle would have happened. Yep, no, still nothing, Anthony. We'll figure it out. Tell you what, the point is, when Anthony goes to games, crazy things happen. This one was the first OT win of the season. Let's talk about it first and 10 style here on a Victory Monday.
It's time to get the breakdown started. 1, 2, 3, First up, 10 observations.
And just boom, put it right on the ground.
It's first and 10.
I mean, look, we can talk about the game, and we are going to talk about the game. But considering what happened as a result of the game, I think
Number 1.
we just got to talk about the season and where we are, which is they're going to the playoffs, and they've won 11 games for the first time since 1991. Let's not bury the lead here. And there is plenty to talk about this week with this game, because there's a little something for everybody. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some offense, there's some defense, there's some special teams, there's the whole deal. But the Washington Commanders have won 11 games for the first time since 1991. It's their best record, obviously, through 16 games since 1991. It's their first overtime win, by the way, since 2014. Their first home overtime win since 2013. The 7-2 record they have at home is the first time they've had 7 wins at home since, you guessed it, 1991. And it's the first time ever at Northwest Stadium, a.k.a. the entire history of FedEx Field, now underneath the history of Northwest Stadium. 7-2 is their best home record since the NFL added the 17th game to the schedule, which includes 9 games every other year. Washington is also 8-3 against NFC opponents, their best record against NFC opponents through 11 games since 2005. 5-1 against NFC opponents at home, their best record against NFC opponents at home through 6 games since 2015. 3-1 against the NFC South. On down the list it goes of thing after thing. They're 4-0 for December for the first time since December of 2012. Like, the list just goes on and on and on and on of accomplishments of this team and just how absurdly good they are relative to their recent and not so recent history. Basically back to the glory days. And it's happening in a year that they weren't supposed to be this, because they won 4 games last year and they're starting a rookie quarterback. And I know it's easy to be like, well, he's not any rookie. But yeah, we don't know that going in. We don't know that Jayden Daniels is going to be Jayden Daniels until, oh my God, this Jayden Daniels guy is ridiculous. That he last night passes RG3's franchise rushing record for a quarterback. That he's passing CJ Stroud for rookie completion records last night. Like, he is having a top 5 MVP season as a rookie. That is not something that you are supposed to be able to do. And we'll talk more about him in a second, but I don't want to lose the forest through the trees here. What they have done this year, taking advantage of a weak schedule. And I will put it that way, right? It's not about, oh, yeah, well, they had a weak schedule. We'll see what they are next year. This year counts. This year counts. And yes, they have a last place schedule because they were last place last year. But the amount of work they did to refill the roster after jettisoning 30 guys in the offseason with the injuries and some of the guys they brought in, we're talking about almost 40 new players now from where they ended last season. To have it come together, to have it coalesce, to have the central theme with that many new faces, guys that have never played together before, be brotherhood, is very, very special. And it not only is resulting in a lot of winning, in my opinion, it is a team that is very fun to root for. I have enjoyed covering them. I have enjoyed rooting for them to the extent that I root as a professional, but like, of course I want them to win. I want to see you guys happy as fans and seeing how easy it is for you to root for this group and knowing that in theory it's only going to get better. Now, it's going to be a lot harder next year. They're going to play a second place schedule, and that is a very, very different existence. Just ask the Houston Texans, for instance. But they should be ready because they have young pieces that should get better. They have a leader, not just in Jayden and some of the other leaders, guys like Bobby, and who I would assume they would bring back if he wanted to come back. But they also have a leader in DQ that I'm going to talk about in a second. That's really special. And first and foremost, before I talk about anything else, and before there's any specific praise, nevertheless specific criticism, congratulations to everyone in Ashburn. You have earned this. It is sensational, and we should not take for granted the fact that these things are very, very hard, and they have done something that is very, very hard, and they deserve a hearty congratulations for it.
Number 2.
I'll get to Jayden in a second, because in the context of the game, nobody's more important than 5. And that is true almost every week, no matter what, by the nature of his very position. But oh my God, the way that he played in this one. We'll get there. But I want to acknowledge something. And that is that if Dan Quinn and the Commanders win on Sunday against the Cowboys, Dan Quinn will have been a part of 4 straight 12-win seasons. He was the defensive coordinator in Dallas for 3 straight 12-win seasons. Comes here, Dallas takes a huge step back for a litany of reasons, but certainly one in part is he's not the defensive coordinator anymore. And he comes here and engineers, as the head coach, a 12-win season. And he does it with a defensive staff that he's very familiar with and comfortable with in Joe Witt Jr., but Joe is a first-time defensive play caller, and I think at times this year that has shown. Joe has consistently gotten better and learned on the job, and I think that's wonderful. But Dan provided the infrastructure to make sure that he had the support, both in his own expertise, Dan's own, and other coaches around him, guys like Ken Norton that are phenomenal, and that's great. Offensively, his leadership to help Cliff build a staff, one, to trust Cliff and know that that was the right hire. I mean, it would have been so easy for him to just say, I'm going to poach the next guy off the Shanahan tree. He didn't. He took the process seriously. He looked around. He listened. He knew a guy that was a little bit different, but that he hated facing as a defensive coordinator was available, and he thought he would be the right fit for Jayden Daniels, and he was, and he's a right fit. Cliff is culturally for this team in terms of the competitor that he is and the fun that he wants to have and how he operates. So that, plus, hey, just because you were here doesn't mean I'm going to boot you out. Tavita Pritchard, I like the cut of your jib. You're going to stay. Some of the other guys that stayed on that offensive staff, and then the ability for that side of the ball to come together. The risk he took on Bobby Johnson on the O-line, which has mostly paid off. I think there's some other issues with that unit potentially, but he's not afraid to stick his hands in and say, hey, I think we should change this. I'm the head coach. I got thoughts. He's also not afraid to let his coaches coach. And he empowers people, and the competitiveness he inspires, the fun that these guys have together, the brotherhood, all of that stuff. A lot of coaches talk. A lot of coaches talk about it. He is about it. And I asked Jeremy Reeves about that specifically last night. And he's like, man, he just says what he does. He says, the right things. I'm like, you've heard a lot of coaches say a lot of stuff over the years, Revo. Like, I've been here for all of it. I've seen the guys you played for. And he goes, it's different because he walks it and he talks it. And I think we should salute Dan Quinn, who was not beloved by everybody listening when he was hired because he wasn't Ben Johnson or it wasn't Bobby Slowick, who might be on the verge of getting fired in Houston as the OC, nevertheless a head coach. Like, it was a risk because it would have been easy to just hire the next hot offensive guy. But Dan Quinn was the right guy for this job, and he is about to be a part of yet another, or at least 11, where he's already gotten it, and maybe 12-win season. And that is the kind of thing that does not just happen to someone. That is a point of purpose coming to reality, and DQ deserves the hearty congratulations as well.
Number 3.
And then there's 5. And then there's Jayden Daniels, who, the way I put it last night on Take Command postgame is basically the best thing I can think of. Like, when you play Madden and it's too easy, and you know in your heart of hearts you need to up the difficulty level, that you're playing on the default setting, you're playing on pro, and even though you might lose a couple more games if you play on all pro, you probably should bump up your difficulty level because you have that scrambling quarterback and you can hit every throw. And if someone's not open, you can run and you can always kind of get the first down. And it's fun, and it's a little challenging. But in your heart of hearts, it's a little too easy. And you know it. You know that you should up the difficulty level. That is Jayden Daniels somehow in an NFL football game. he just put the game on his back last night because he had to. Because he looked around and said, I don't have any deep threat outside of Terry McLaurin. Terry's a little banged up, and A.J. Terrell is locking him down. So, okay, great. I'm down my number one receiver. My number two option is a 35-year-old tight end who is very good at what he does, but what he does is limited, okay? I got Olamide Zaccheaus. I can trust him on this stuff, but I'm going to make sure I hit him. And then OZ did a great job last night of running after the catch. Great. Jamison Crowder. Been floating around the league the past couple of years. Came back last week. Big, great, touchdown to win the game. But, Jamison Crowder's a limited skill set. Luke McCaffrey's a rookie who I thought yesterday was going to be his day. Nope. He's got Bryson Tremaine out there running around. KJ Osborne's out there running around. What is he supposed to do? Oh, I'll hit John Bates on an over in the red zone and let him run over someone. And those are his options as a passer. His offensive line is banged up and not playing well. His all-pro or his Pro Bowl right guard is holding people every which way, getting penalties, losing his mind. He's so mad at the refs. And Jayden was just like, you know what? Screw it. I got it. It's fine. If I need to go run, I'll run. I'll make the play. And by the way, the running game, the running backs outside of Chris Rodriguez, not having the best of days. But Jeremy McNichols makes a clutch play. But it all happens off of 5. His ability to just create offense out of thin air in a way that you're not supposed to be able to do in the NFL was wild. And on the way, broke a bunch of records. Second 100-plus yard game for a quarterback rushing in franchise history, joining Roberts' 2012 performance against Minnesota. Daniels has now become the first quarterback in NFL history with 2+ touchdowns, 200+ passing yards, 65+ rushing yards in 3 straight games. Daniels has scored 31 combined touchdowns this season and moved past Russell Wilson for number 3 all-time by a rookie quarterback. His 31 combined touchdowns are tied with Kirk in 2017 for number 3 all-time in franchise history by a quarterback in a single season. It's just on down the list. Joins Mike Vick as the only quarterbacks in NFL history to record 225+ passing yards, 3+ passing touchdowns, and 125+ rushing yards in a single game. Vick accomplished that feat one time back in 2010 against the Giants. We are just talking about time and time and time again. He is setting records on a weekly basis. And some of them are, at this point, accumulation records, but other of them are a quarterback has done this once before in the history of the league, which is 105 years old. He's awesome, man. And the competitor he is, we've said it all before, but there are 2 other guys in the league that I think can play a game like Jayden played last night. And they're the 2 guys that are fighting for the MVP. It's Lamar and Josh Allen. Guys who can beat you legitimately with their legs or with their arm or both at once. And for as great as even Mahomes, playoff Mahomes has done it a couple times where he's had 70+ rushing yards. But it's different. The idea that you can design quarterback run game yourself to victory is not something you do with Pat Mahomes. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't rather have Pat Mahomes because Pat Mahomes is on the GOAT track. Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league until future notice, even if this year Lamar and Josh Allen have been better. But those 2, the 2 guys that are fighting for MVP, those are the only 2 that are playing the way that Jayden does at the level Jayden does. And they are in their absolute peak of their power prime. He's a rookie. Let that sink in, let that soak in, and enjoy the hell out of it as long as we have it here in D.C. All right, that's the top of our 1st and 10. When we get back, we'll roll through some of the other notes from the game, including one enormous coaching decision that DQ and Joe Witt Jr. made that changed the entire game against Atlanta. 1st and 10 continues next on The Hoffman Show. It's a Victory Monday, a Tell the Truth Monday on the Hoffman Show. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And coming up in just a little bit, we'll take your calls as it is a Tell the Truth Monday. Commanders are in the playoffs thanks to an overtime win over the Atlanta Falcons. What's on your mind? How you feeling? What you thinking? What you think about the game, that performance, and the season that they have had so far? 301-230-0980 is where you will tell us. But we continue now, rolling through the notebook for the Commanders win over the Falcons in our 1st and 10.
Number 4.
This was a game where the Commanders absolutely felt their injuries, and they had to find a way. And while the performance was not up to the standard that I think it's going to take to win a playoff game, and certainly not the standard that they've set for themselves, if I objectively take a step back, the fact that they were able to figure it out is impressive, because the O-line stuff, that really hurt them. They just could not get the run game going, but they finally found a way using Jayden on some design runs to loosen things up. Chris Rodriguez comes in, plays his face off, both as a runner and in blitz protection. And they eventually loosened up the run defense a little bit. They found ways to protect Jayden a little bit better, and good on them. And if they could just avoid the stupid penalties, like the O-line would have actually had an okay day. So good for them. And that's, by the way, in a day where they don't have any vertical threat because De'Ami Brown is out. They felt that big time as the offense just felt hard the entire day. Can't run it. Everything's being sat on because there is no vertical speed on the field outside of Terry, and they roll coverage that way a ton. So it was just a hard day offensively. And then defensively, obviously, Michael Davis struggled, and that you're feeling the Marshawn Lattimore injury, by the way. It also made the day a lot harder for Mike Sainristil, who had a very bad day. So you feel that injury big time. So just up and down the roster, those injuries you really felt yesterday. And so credit to the Commanders for finding a way to overcome it with the roster in a state of flux.
Number 5.
One area where they theoretically were healthy, and in fact the healthiest they've been in a long time, was along the defensive line. And that didn't seem to matter in the first half because Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier ran all freaking over them. And then Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr., and that staff up front made a change that turned around the entire game. They played Daron Payne on the edge, and I was told that this was not pointed out within the broadcast, and I understand potentially why, because it happened first on a drive where it was a 3-and-out, so there's not a lot of time. And by the time they get back to it a couple drives later, I don't know. I don't know why Collinsworth didn't point it out, but it absolutely changed the game, and that was they put Daron Payne at defensive end. And so the front, what I put in my notes is nickel plus. Nickel was what Washington played for most of the game. But up front, they would have Daron on one end, Jalen Holmes on the other, who's their biggest edge and best edge setter, which is, congrats to Jalen Holmes on finding a freaking role, man. That dude is playing really good ball in a large capacity of what he's asked to do this season. And then John Allen and Johnny Newton and Sheldon Day would rotate a defensive tackle. But because all of a sudden Daron Payne is on the edge and Holmes is doing such a good job on the other one, that outside zone play that Atlanta lived off of in the first half and is the centerpiece of their offense became very, very difficult, because setting an edge on Daron Payne is very different than setting an edge on Dante Fowler or even Dorrance Armstrong or Cleveland Ferrell or Javonte Jean-Baptiste. And so sometimes they tried it. It didn't work. Other times, Zach Robinson, the Atlanta offensive coordinator, just flat out decided, I'm going to pass the ball on first down. And that's a win for Washington because Bijan Robinson had a phenomenal day. And he is an extremely talented back. And I would much rather have a rookie and Michael Penix try to beat me than let Bijan Robinson run all over me. And so that change changed the entire game, as did one other singular play, which also reminded me of something else earlier in the game.
Number 6.
3rd and 23, I believe, was the down and distance. Maybe it was 3rd and 22. Washington's first drive of the second half, they're about to go 3-and-out. They've taken a sack. Things look very bad. The game is spiraling out of control. They're down 17-7, and Jayden gets sacked on a 3rd down, except for there's an illegal contact penalty down the field. And the drive continues. And it turns into a 15-play drive, which is followed by the 3-and-out that I mentioned earlier that starts on a 1-yard run stuff. with Deron Payne setting a great edge. And then it's followed by a 14-play touchdown drive. And all of a sudden, there's 13 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and Washington is up 21-17. And the play total for the second half is 29 Washington, 3 Atlanta. And it doesn't happen without that illegal contact penalty, which is why earlier in the game, when the Commanders threw a screen on 3rd and 30, I wanted to pull my hair out. Never, ever, ever throw screens on third and 30. Don't run draws on 3rd and 30. Just run all go. Unless you are playing a field position type of game where you're like, hey, if we can get 10, 15 yards, we're getting a field goal, or we can pin them super deep on the punt. Other than that, throw the ball deep. Run 4 verts, chuck it out there. If it's an arm punt, it's an arm punt, but you might get a penalty. And that's probably the best way to convert on 3rd and 30. It certainly is the best way to do it on 3rd and 22. Washington did save the game. Hallelujah. Yay, actual play calls on stupid down and distances against other teams that are going to do silly things.
Number 7.
Number 7 in the notebook. Thank you, Raheem Morris, for the playoff berth. Much appreciate your services. The former Washington assistant turned Falcons head coach who failed his clock management course yesterday. I have no idea what Atlanta was doing at the end of the first half, but especially at the end of the game. To let the clock run from 33 seconds left after Michael Davis gives up a deep comeback to Darnell Mooney. And credit to Davis, while I don't know what he's looking at on the play. Like, he's right with him and then just kind of was like not really paying attention to the quarterback, and then the ball's out and he catches it. He does quickly say, all right, we're done here. You're down, and you're down in bounds. So clock winds. Good job, Michael Davis, on at least the second part, making sure that there's no out of bounds. And I think a defensible decision by Raheem Morris to not immediately call the timeout. But once you realize you're not getting to the line fast enough, you have to bang that timeout. They don't get another snap until 17 seconds left. And if it wasn't for a very questionable PI call on Davis, they don't even get a field goal off. Instead, they get one off, but it's way farther than it should be because they wasted 2 to 3 plays worth of time. Thank you, Riley Patterson, for your continued contributions to the Washington Commanders franchise. Arguably the most contributions he made after he missed some kicks earlier in the year. And voila, to the playoffs the Commanders go.
Number 8.
Thanks to their first overtime win of the year. All right, I mentioned the offensive line problems. I'm going to get into these more tomorrow because I haven't watched the offensive film yet. I've made it all the way through the defense, but I don't need the film to tell me, like, the penalties are an issue. 1, no more false starts. Please, you know what the snap count is. Just quit false starting. 2, the holds. I did really appreciate Dan Quinn's answer today when he was asked about some of the holds on Cosmi. There's a technique that they teach where essentially if the hands are inside, sometimes you reset the hands and you don't actually yank the guy down, but you pull your hands out and you pull them up like towards your face and then you chop down. And sometimes when you do that, which is a legal thing to do, the other dude falls. It's not a hold, but if you're an umpire who's positioned in the offensive backfield watching from behind, it very much looks like you are pulling the guy down. And that is apparently what happened to Cosmi multiple times. And Dan was basically like, I understand why it looks like that. And if that's the case, I think we need to revisit that technique and think about maybe having our guys block a different way so we don't pick up holding calls. Because that game is over if that Olamide Zaccheaus touchdown stands. Instead, hold on Cosmi, goes back, you kick the field goal. We all know what happens. It works out. But yeah, gotta get that figured out. Not to mention just playing better. Cosmi, that was a bad month. Next game's in January, Sam. New year, new you.
Number 9.
Back to the old you. You're a really good football player. Number 9, Michael Penix. I'll do a full Penix thing at some point this week. But long story short, I question the move to go to Penix at this point in the season because sticking him in a major moment where he's got a warm-up game against the Giants and his first real NFL game is on Sunday Night Football with your playoff hopes hanging in the balance. And some of those nerves showed. He actually wasn't as erratic as I think I initially thought, but he definitely missed a lot of throws that I think whether it's nerves or whether it's lack of reps, either way, the lack of experience shows up in this game. And because of what the offense looks like with Penix, I still think it's the right move compared to Cousins, but the question is, did they optimize it? Could they have gone to him a week or maybe even 2 to 3 weeks earlier when Cousins was starting to struggle and their offense was crap in Atlanta because they couldn't move the quarterback at all and it was very static, very stationary, and starting to become very ineffective? Could they have done it earlier and not had this be the case? And I just think their general plan with Penix to not try to maximize his success is not the way you should handle a rookie quarterback, and in part cost them this football game.
Number 10.
Meanwhile, you've got Cliff Kingsbury on the other side who's optimizing every guy he's got at every turn. Because, man, the talent that he's dealing with, not super duper high level because of the injuries, because of the state of the roster, because of all the things that we talked about off the top of 1st and 10. With that said, Bryson Tremaine's playing today? That dude blocks his face off. 4th down, we're going to have Bryson Tremaine seal an edge on a defensive end. 4th and 2 when Jayden gets the edge, Bryson Tremaine is out there blocking Matthew Judon. Yeah. You know you can trust him to do it. That's who he is. He's a special teams, really good player. Guy who can block. Fine. Let's have him do that instead of Luke McCaffrey blocking Cam Jordan in New Orleans. Chris Rodriguez, we gotta find ways to get that dude the ball a little bit more. With the running game struggling, he's the one that loosened it up. Getting Jeremy McNichols in that 4th down conversion on 4th and 5, knowing that he's the right guy. It's OZ, the routes that he's running. Crowder, the routes he's running. He just found a way to get guys that have limited skill sets the ball and or involved in Tremaine's case as a blocker by using those skill sets. And it sounds so easy, yet it's harder to do because you have a scheme and you have to plug guys into place. You don't draw up every play in the dirt. But Cliff found a way, along with the wide receivers coaches and anyone else who's involved in that passing game, to ensure that the right guys were in the right spots at the right time. And that is a tremendous and applause-worthy job by Cliff Kingsbury. All right, that is our 1st and 10. Some big high-level thoughts on the team to get us started, including Dan Quinn and Jayden Daniels, followed up by the rest of the things from the notebook. Man, what a wild and wacky game. Does Washington play any other kind? Does not seem like it. When we get back, it's a Tell the Truth Monday, and we're going to take your calls at 301-230-0980. Your thoughts on this overtime win that sends Washington to the playoffs. Next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers.
I want the truth.
Call us now at 301-230-0980 to tell the truth about the Commanders.
You can't handle the truth.
Or hit the comment section at the Team 980 on YouTube.
It is indeed a Victory Monday, a Tell the Truth Monday here on the Hoffman Show, Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Take your calls, 301-230-0980. What do you think about that Commanders overtime victory against the Atlanta Falcons? Let's get things rolling with our guy Ross in Tampa. Ross, appreciate you, sir. How you doing on this Victory Monday?
Hey, I'm actually excited. This is my first Tell the Truth Monday segment. I'm feeling good on Victory Monday. How about you, Craig?
I'm feeling fantastic. Playoff games, sign me up. Let's go.
You already know, man. Hey, first of all, hey, I appreciate you reaching back to me about the RFK question and stuff. I love to be educated, and I love to be corrected if I'm wrong on something. So I might hit you up with a few more questions here and there if you don't mind, man, because you're the guy to go to when it comes to this stuff. You're on top of it, bro.
I appreciate that, Ross. Thank you. All right, what you got on the game from yesterday?
Man, if I told you everything on my mind, you have to hang up on me. That last night was ridiculously crazy. You know, my wife, she's an indie girl, so she roots for her Colts, but she's been with me for the past 11 years, so she knows what I've been through. And it was just crazy. Last night, you know, JD took that awkward sack early in the game, and her heart dropped. I'm just sitting there silent, hoping he got up, and thank goodness he did. But it's just like she knows what's been going on with this organization, and it's just such a great feeling. And I'll be honest with you. Here's my tell the truth. The Commanders have posted a picture of Adam Peters and Josh Harris embracing in the locker room. Could you imagine if it was the same situation with Dan Snyder and Bruce Allen? Oh, my goodness, I throw up on the spot all over my brand new shoes. I don't even care. So I'm feeling good, man. And regardless of how the playoffs works itself out for us, listen, this right here, you couldn't tell me that nobody thought that we would be 11-5 at this point. I wouldn't believe you. But I got a question for you, Craig, before I hop up off here.
What's up?
Of all the one-year players that, you know, Dan Peters, they brought in, which one will you be more intrigued to bring him back? Because me personally, I'd like to bring back Fowler. I think him running into Dan Quinn was probably the best thing that's ever happened to him in his career. And he won't emerge into like a superstar X-Factor type player. But I do think as long as we got Fowler playing for Dan Quinn, you're going to get the best player out of him. Hey, I'm going to try my best to call a little bit more often, man. Y'all have a good rest of y'all day, Craig.
Thanks, Ross. Great call as always, man. Really appreciate you, and Happy New Year. As far as the one-year guys, Bobby's probably my top priority just because he seems like such a pillar for what they want to be. I mean, the relationship he has with Jayden, and like, would I want to start rotating him perhaps? And like, hopefully that's Jordan McGee, because then you don't have to spend another draft pick. But if you get, second round next year, let's say some linebacker that is only a second rounder because linebacker is not a position that is really emphasized anymore, like that's fine. But I would say that Bobby is the guy that immediately jumps to mind. But I'm definitely down to bring Fowler back on another, like, if it's 1+1, but really 1 year deal. And I just want his role to be smaller. And I know that sounds crazy because he has been in the bigger role, having one of the best seasons of his career. It's certainly the best season of his career when he's not playing next to Aaron Donald, which is a relevant plot point for anybody that, had a career year anytime over the last decade playing for the LA Rams. It's like, yeah, you were a D lineman playing next to Aaron Donald and had a career year? Oh, really? Tell me more. But he's had a really effective year as a guy getting pressures and sacks, and he's had a bunch of tackles for loss. But you also see the shortcomings on first and second down sometimes, and why, as a lighter guy, you have to be more careful with how you deploy him. And the outside zone stuff that you see yesterday with big offensive linemen running at him, he's kind of got one trick against that. It's like, can I shed this block quickly, get upfield, and hope that I'm in the right spot? So he also, from a discipline standpoint, how many times are you going to hit a dude in the head trying to swat a ball on a naked bootleg? A big penalty yesterday. Like, that was frustrating. But he changes the game with that sack fumble. Like, he makes plays. And so if you can get a premier pass rusher, like premier, like top flight, use your first round pick on one, or, if I don't want to know how many picks it's going to take to trade for Myles Garrett, but like let's just pretend like that's smart for a second. Myles Garrett, Dorrance Armstrong are your starters. Okay, great. Now, on third downs, we're going to bring in Dorrance Armstrong. Dante Fowler, I mean. Sure, great. Sign me up. So, like, those are two of the guys. Definitely hit Fowler, Bobby. I think you have to have a discussion about Zach. I think you definitely would like to upgrade there in terms of a bigger play threat. Can you get your Sam Laporta? Can you get your George Kittle? Can you get, your Tucker Kraft even from Green Bay? Just a tight end who can stretch the field a little bit more vertically, has a little bit bigger of a route tree than Zach at this point in his career. Can you get a younger version of Zach Ertz or have Ben Sinnott have a monster offseason and develop into that? So I think those are some of the guys that immediately come to mind. Zacchaeus, he's been very, very good, but I don't know that you need to re-sign him necessarily depending on what else you do at the position. So there's definitely, I'll say this. There aren't any guys that come to mind that I'm like, no way, no how, I'm not bringing that guy back. And that goes back to the character piece of this. They always are very pointed in who they sign and will be for the rest of time because that is how they are. They scout people first. If you don't fit in the building, if you're not going to work hard, if you're not going to have a chance to succeed because of how you go about your business, we're not interested in you. That's the Commander's way. And so any of these guys I would pretty much welcome back, even though a lot of them I think you can very much upgrade on from a talent level. You just need to make sure that the person is right with the talent, like the Luvus and like that level of guy that they've signed. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, more of your calls on a Tell the Truth Monday. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Anthony Haney, are you there?
Yo.
Yay!
There we go, baby.
Phone lines are open, 301-230-0980. YouTube chat's an interesting place right now, Anthony. I don't know if you've checked in.
Let me go look real quick.
We I don't get it. I don't get it. We have a lot of people in the YouTube chat who are either looking ahead to next year or are in search of problems to fix the day after your team clinched a playoff berth for the first time since 2020 and the second time in the last decade. They won their 11th game for the first time since 1991 yesterday. Enjoy it. Be happy. I'm not saying that the game was perfect. I'm not saying that you can't criticize, but like I'm stunned. B-Rob's overrated. He sucks. This guy sucks. This guy, Sam Cosby, needs to give back his cash. Like, I'm not telling you those guys were awesome yesterday, but I'm much more interested in how they overcame some of that stuff and saying, like, wow, this team is resilient, which, in fairness, we got that. Tommy T fought through turnovers against the Eagles to win, fought through penalties to win last night. This team is resilient. But, like, RS Swimmer 84, there's no way we can keep strolling out there with Michael Davis. Can Quan Martin play outside corner? What? Sometimes y'all got solutions in search of problems. Michael Davis, not good. I tried to tell you. Nobody wanted to listen to me. That just was very Chris Russell of me, but I don't care. Benjamin St. Juste, better player than you think. By the way, can make a legitimate argument that Mike Sainristil was worse than Michael Davis yesterday. Mikey was, he had a bad one. But nobody wants to hear that. They like their narratives. And I think my thing with this, Anthony, is this is why when people are like, that guy sucks, he's the worst player ever, my pushback is never, no, he's actually great and you don't get it. It's, I think you should watch more football. Because if you think Benjamin St. Juste, for instance, is the worst corner in the history of the NFL and needs to be cut and or shot, which I know sounds harsh, but you should see some of the comments that people talk about with BSJ. It's weird. Well, the guy behind him is turns out worse, which is maybe why Benjamin's playing. And by the way, the guy that like, Mikey's incredible. How could you possibly talk about BSJ and Lattimore? And I realized that now Sainristil, did ultimately pass BSJ on the depth chart, but when some of that discussion was happening around the Lattimore trade, they were much more even. And BSJ seems to have lost his own confidence, and I think his play declined even more. But, like, people were talking about BSJ and Sainristil like they were playing on two different planets worth of level. And it's like, no, they're kind of the same. Just BSJ's mistakes happen in higher profile spots. And so I think we just have to remember sometimes the NFL is hard. It's rarely ever going to be perfect. It takes years to build a team that's capable of doing what the Lions are doing or the Bills were doing or the 49ers have done the last 5 years or the Chiefs. Like, it takes years to build rosters like that. And understanding that there are some limitations and shortfalls here and celebrating the way that this coaching staff has outdone that, the way that the front office has filled just enough of the holes. They played whack-a-mole well enough to do it. And knowing that if they can get a couple of pieces back and healthy, that they are capable of absolutely winning a playoff game, that there's nobody I look at in the NFC and be like, I'm terrified of them. Do I think Ben Johnson and the Lions offense could put up 50 on the Commanders? Yeah, I absolutely do. I also think the Commanders could put up 50 on the Lions. So I, on a day where they have won and they have done the things, am not not watching the tape and not looking for things to improve, I just am complaining a lot less because I'm going, hey, this was a problem and here's how they overcame it versus, oh my God, they clinched the playoffs. Can't wait till next year. Because what is the point of, like, if you're always looking for next year, you never enjoy right now. And I would lightly recommend just enjoy right now.
What is Dan Quinn always telling his players? Be present where your feet are, man.
Be at where your feet's at.
God, I mean, I'm enjoying the ride right now, Craig. Like, I understand, I feel with some of the fans, like the defense had a mixed bag yesterday. Offense,
they did. But as someone who's watched the entire defensive film, guess what? If you don't commit a couple of what I think are fairly easily correctable penalties, and Penix doesn't make a sick throw on 4th down to Kyle Pitts late, and the fact that you're in 4th and 11 and 4th and 13, like those are good down and distances. Typically, you got to finish. I think that's the frustration, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
My frustration the entire year with this defense is they don't finish. But like, okay, maybe that's just kind of who they are. And the fact that they've survived that and have at least an 11 and might have a 12-win season is good. And good is good. That's put that on your 2024 sayings to bring into 2025. Put that down on your notepad, class. Good is good. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up next, Michael Phillips joins the show with his thoughts on the Commanders making the playoffs with their overtime win over the Atlanta Falcons. the Hoffman show. A playoff-bound Hoffman show. We go where the team goes. Maybe literally? Probably not. I don't think we're going to get flown anywhere. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I feel like we should bring Anthony to the playoffs. We're going to get into that now with our guest for today's edition of Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live. This just in.
Not My Beat.
Michael Phillips, MP on the mic, 10 a.m. to noon on 910 The Fan in Richmond, our sister station in the Odyssey Sports Network. You can listen to it on the free Odyssey app, just like you can listen to us. And Michael, you had the last minute play dad yesterday /husband /nurse as you had sick members of your household. You had to bail on the game. And then another chaotic ending where the Commanders win. And we might have figured something out with this experiment because your record this year is flawless at Northwest Stadium.
That's correct.
So is Anthony Haney's. He's 3-0 now, and the 3 wins, Michael, are Chicago, Philadelphia, and last night. So
he doesn't do normal.
Yeah, who's got the magic now, I believe is the question.
I keep it boring. I was there for Chicago, but my other ones have been boring ones. I want Anthony at the playoff game. Let's pass the hat. Let's make this happen. That sounds fun.
By pass the hat, let's pass a hat with a note to our sponsorship department to please get sponsorship travel sponsors. Actually, though, Michael, I would say, hold on, Michael.
Pick him up on the way.
Michael, I would prefer you to go though if we can get easy wins. I don't know if I can take another game like last night.
We'll both go and we'll see what happens. Somebody's got to win out here, but if it's in Philly, I'll pick him up on the way. That's my promise.
Okay, all right, that's a deal. I think Anthony, does that work for you?
Hell yeah.
All right, this is ride in the old Phillips mobile, the old Michael mobile. I don't know why I didn't go with the alliteration first. You got to experience that game watching it from the comfort. I don't know how comfortable your home is right now with all the sickness going around. Hope everybody's feeling better. But you got to experience it, with Tirico and Collinsworth and the whole deal last night. As you're watching it, Michael, what's your kind of emotional gut feeling as things are going sideways? You have the penalties. Is it kind of what the new Commanders normal is, which is, I don't know how they're going to stupidly win this game, but they will? Or was there any kind of lurking back to the past of I don't know how stupidly they're going to lose this game, but they will?
Well, in my overarching thought was, even if they don't win, it honestly doesn't change anything for me, big picture narrative-wise. Little picture-wise, we would have had a butt-clenching week. It would have been a tough game in Dallas, had to win to get in, and that part wouldn't have been easy. So it was a big swing. But big picture, they've exercised those demons. They have. And there will be a bad loss. There could be a bad loss on Sunday. There could be a bad loss the week after that. There could be a dumb moment or a penalty-filled game. We're not going back, though. We can't go back. I'm not going back. Sometimes football teams do dumb things or make bad throws or, whatever. Sometimes Terry's 1 for 7 inexplicably. It doesn't mean they're cursed, and it doesn't mean it's the same old team. We're past that, and I'm excited about that. No, as I was watching, I thought, well, get number 5 the ball. He's going to figure it out if you get him the ball, and a game ball to Raheem Morris for giving them that chance.
Yeah, Raheem and his timeouts, a little too close to friends there. It's all right for you guys to separate. Man, I can't imagine doing Atlanta radio today. Very different show. Is there a player that you've covered in your life that has felt like 5 in any sport, anything that fandom? Who are the people that you compare Jayden Daniels to in sports right now?
I really wish the answer weren't RG3, but we did all have that feeling for the first 10 weeks. And they're different. They're different in so many different ways. So don't hear me saying they're the same person, because they're not. But the feeling the fans had, 12, 13 games in with Robert was the same feeling. We got our guy. We're good. We'll do anything. And they're very different people. And so that's not, everybody will hear that the wrong way with Jayden, obviously, and that's not the intent at all. Locally, Ovechkin is that guy, right? But it's a different sport in a different format. You can't
put the puck on Ovechkin's stick for with a minute left it doesn't work like that in hockey. He's the only other guy, who's been dominant in that. I was covering Big 12 basketball when Kevin Durant had his rookie year at Texas, and it was a little different. I mean, KD's KD. I was like, KD in college could do whatever he wanted to, and it does feel like that air of invincibility just follows Five around.
It does. It does. And it kind of almost feels like a pro playing with college kids, which is why it's so shocking to see what he did yesterday, because it's not college kids anymore. This isn't as great as Alabama was last year and the defensive players that they had, multiple first-round draft picks, the whole deal, when he did what he did, or, Florida, whatever. Like, it's still an SEC football team, but, like, okay, what he did was crazy, but he did it against college kids. You aren't supposed to do what he did yesterday against pros, Michael. And I guess the question I would ask you, a sober human, presumably, who watches from his couch and now has, 20 hours of separation from the final whistle. Like last night when we're doing post game, Logan and I were like, this is so rare and so unique, because the Michael Vicks of the world and Cam Newton, they just had so much physical ability to impose their will on a team as runners. And they were not as complete of passers as Jayden is. And then you have the Bradys and the Mannings, who obviously could just kill you as passers, but didn't have any fleet of foot ability at all. So there's been people that have been able to dominate from the quarterback position, but rare is the one that can do it with arms and legs at this level. And the only two guys that we could really think of are the two guys that are fighting over the MVP award right now, and that's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Is that to you a dramatic overstatement because we were 1:40 a.m. punch drunk after that game and still in the emotions of the aftermath, or are we on to something there?
I would like to sprinkle in a little Mahomes, who I thought of when his knee bent backwards in the first quarter. Mahomes has that ability. He's made out of rubber. Whatever happens, you're like, oh my gosh, Mahomes isn't going to play the rest of the year. And then the next series, he's out there like clapping at everybody, like, quit making a big deal out of this. We're going to keep playing football. Definitely thought a little bit of that in the first quarter last night. Look, he's got to do it for a long time, and we don't know what it'll look like. And I mean, obviously never wishing it on him, but odds are in the next 5 or 6 years, there'll be a year where he gets hurt. And you'll see just how valuable he is that year, because this team ain't going anywhere without him. That is it. He's the team right now. He's got a ways to go, but the raw tools are so good. It was funny you mentioned the SEC. He did an interview on Sunday Countdown on ESPN yesterday, and Marty Smith was doing with him. He was like, you're in all these big moments, and Jay was like, I've been in Death Valley, like I've been at Bama, like I've handled it. And it's like, it's so funny to me because NFL people hate that so much. Like, right, the NFL is special and unique and different. Yeah, I've been in big moments and I've done things, and I'll do things here too. And it's just so not what the NFL is at all. But yeah, man, I love what this kid's made of. He's got to do it for a long time, right? No, C.J. Stroud is on a team that has taken a half step backwards. He's still a very good quarterback, but you hear the conversation cool. There will be ebbs and flows over the next 5-10 years, but I like this guy. I'm willing to ride with him for a decade.
Michael Phillips, MP on the mic, 10 a.m. to noon on 910 The Fan in Richmond. Of course, covered the Commanders on the beat for a long, long time for the Richmond Times-Dispatch, with us for his weekly visit on Mondays here on the Team 980. No, you're so right. I was laughing. I turned my mic off because I was laughing hard enough at that fact that the NFL people just flat out hate when college comparisons are brought up. But like emotionally, I don't know how much tougher it gets than Alabama, 100,000 people screaming bloody murder at night for an LSU-Alabama game, or the Swamp, like emotionally. But the task is a lot harder in the NFL because the players are a lot better. And that's, I think, what made the performance yesterday so just impossibly impressive, is he just willed his way to victory in a way that you're not supposed to in the NFL. But he has to do it, Michael, because of all of the deficiencies around him, whether they were built-in roster deficiencies because you can't build an empire in a year, or the injuries that have started to stack up for this team. Like, what's your concern level, and how does the amount of injuries currently on this roster affect how you would approach Week 18 here with the playoff seed already clinched up? Or the playoffs, I should say, the berth already clinched up, but seed still on the line.
Yeah, I'll just say that first, there's nothing you can do about the Lattimore situation. I think they were counting on getting more from him than the game and the injury reaction. I think they were counting on having him down the stretch, and there's nothing you can do about that. But I also think they might have broken something inside St. Juice when they benched him that maybe you're not going to be able to reclaim until he gets the cliched fresh start somewhere else next year. And Davis isn't the answer either. So that's a huge glaring concern. I agree with Dan Quinn, who said today, I think the seeding is very important, and I'd like to co-sign on that. Craig, I think the seeding is very important. We've seen that Jayden can do anything. Could he win in Philly, against Saquon? I don't know. That's a big ask. I'd sure rather have a game in L.A., which is probably going to be a 50-50 crowd if we're calling it what it is. I mean, all those games in L.A. are in a tamer environment against a team that really hasn't flipped the switch to the same degree this year. I think that's a big, big deal. I'd go pretty hard this week to try to get it.
No, I agree with you, and I also think it just fits the mentality of who they are. Now, of course, you can prepare everybody as hard as possible and then be like, actually, you're not going to play. So, you can make decisions, but I do think just kind of trucking the momentum forward is probably the right move. As far as the cornerback situation, I think people learned yesterday why Michael Davis was not playing over Benjamin St. Juice. Would you switch that back in Week 18, knowing that the ceiling is higher with Juice, just to be like, hey, man, let's just play confidently. Let's play good football. Hope that you have a relatively stress-free week from a situational standpoint. Maybe get him a little confidence and roll with that in the playoffs if you have to as the backup to Lattimore, or would you run Davis back out there?
No, St. Juice is your best option. You got to try to figure out how you're going to make it work. Now, if you think you're getting Lattimore in 2 weeks, then you don't have to worry about playing this game. Just roll Davis out. Whatever happens, happens. But I don't think you can assume you're getting Lattimore at this juncture. Hamstrings are finicky, obviously, as we all know. I think you got to try to make this work with St. Juice. I do think he's the best option. Can you shuffle the deck again? I don't know. That's a big ask on short notice. So I think you're trying to make it work with him. The penalties aren't great anywhere on the defense or the offense either. So I certainly don't want to cast it all on one guy. But it's an important guy. CB1's kind of an important role, and they don't have one right now, which does make all of this way more impressive.
It does. It also, everyone's like, oh, yeah, they could play the Rams. And it's because we were thinking they might be stuck playing the Eagles again, and the Eagles are just grotesquely talented. But the idea of, even with Marshawn Lattimore, facing Puka Nacua in that offense and Matthew Stafford in the playoffs, that does scare the bejesus out of me, Michael. Turns out, if you're in the playoffs, you're going to have to play a good team.
Look, the Rams are 7-point favorites if they play against these guys, but so's Philly. I think there's probably something to having a nicer weather game too. I don't know if that's meaningful or not meaningful, but I think for Jayden, it's nice to put him in a comfort zone and not have him. It's 10 below zero.
Homecoming game for Jayden if it's out in L.A. too. By the way, I also don't think they'd be 7-point favorites. I think it's probably, I don't know, man. Washington might be favored against L.A.
No. LA's between 3 and 7. Whatever those polls are. Maybe they're 3.5. Maybe they're 5.5. LA's favored though in that game. They're rolling. Matt Stafford's good. This secondary's weak. But it'd be a fun game, and it'd be one of those low pressure Saturday night when nobody's watching games, which is kind of perfect for this team to get a little playoff experience, have a chance to win one. Not have to. That Eagles game would have, there's so much hype around Philly this year. Can they do it? Can they break through with Saquon? I think it'd be nice to be away from that. But for the other 21 guys, for the one guy, for Jayden, he does seem to save his biggest moments for when the whole world's watching. So, maybe we do actually want that.
Michael Phillips, MP on the mic with us here on the Hoffman Show. Along the O-line, obviously, they're having a ton of issues right now. Some of those are injury-related. Biotish goes down yesterday. Cosme's just had a bad month. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
Wiley goes down with the groin. Again, through the lens of seeding, how hard are you pushing any of those guys this week? Because also, I think the thing with O-line is it's one, the better players are going to make you better, but two, every worst player you have out there risks someone missing a block, missing an assignment, and a blind shot, or just a kill shot on Jayden in the pocket. Like, how do you approach your O-line this week for a guy, let's say like Tyler Biadasz?
I mean, I am playing number 5 without my best possible O-line behind him, right? And those are the best guys available. If Biadasz can't go, he can't go. But if he's available and Jayden's playing quarterback, Biadasz is out there. I just think that's too important in the big picture of things. And if you want to give the O-line the week off, that's fine. But I think you need to give number 5 the week off too then, because I just don't love that possibility, right, of walking into a situation where he's hurt or he gets beat up. And to tie this all the way back to your first comment today, and we'll remind people if they missed it, it's on the Odyssey app because I haven't said that all week. I've been off for a little while. That, part of this is in Jayden and the big picture and us raving over him. There were some misses yesterday where Atlanta had some really good blitzes. And he missed them, and he didn't make the right call, and that's totally fine. That's part of the learning experience. But that's not going to get easier over the next couple of weeks. You're going to deal with good teams that throw good things at you. So that's an important part of it, is having your best possible O-line out there to help him through that. Kind of reminded me of the Tampa game, the opener a bit. Tampa dialed some stuff up. You're like, oh, he doesn't know what to do with that. He's a really good learner. He's a quick learner. He's going to learn what to do with that. But as of right now, he hasn't seen it all, and he's not quite ready for anything. So I would lean towards playing the best guys.
I 100% agree. The communication when Biadasz is out there, I think, is just so much better.
Yeah.
One of the one that Coleman misses, like, that's on Coleman, but also, is it better communicated? Is it clearer? Does it get executed better if Biadasz is calling the protection and maybe a reminder gets sent down to left tackle about, hey, who your responsibility is? Only they can know. Last but not least, Michael, let's lean on your history covering this team here. Trying to put this into perspective. 11 wins for the first time since 91. Playoffs for the first time since 20. It was the first overtime win since 2014, which is crazy. It means it's the first time since I got here in 2015. That's the first time I've ever seen them win in overtime. Wait, was their last overtime game the 2014 Cowboys game where Colt started?
No means no. Right after that game, yeah, that was Colt McCoy Monday Night Football. They also had a tie in London along the way there too in overtime. It's a long distinguished history.
Yeah, I can't remember if that was an overtime game, and that just hit me. Then I was there for that. I was there. I just was covering the Cowboys and working in Dallas at the time. But as someone who's been covering this team since like the early 2010s, since the Robert era, since the Shanahan, since the whole deal, like, how do you try to put into perspective how surprising and how joyous this season has been?
The 91 stat is just jaw-dropping in light of the rest of the league, which has made it into the 21st century pretty comfortably in most cases. I think the new longest 11-win drought is Jacksonville in 2007. Do I have that right? I don't have it in front of me, but
yeah,
I believe
it's not even remotely close to what Washington's was. No one else had to go back to the previous century.
No, it was a 16-year swing over everybody else. I feel so good for the fans, and for Anthony and the young fans, and for the old fans who are coming back in it and coming around, and to get to go to the stadium and be with Commanders fans and have a really good game day presentation where they cut the lights and do all the fun things, which they haven't done for 30 years. I'm really happy for everybody because I think this is awesome, and they've. Goodness knows, a lot of people deserve this for putting up with a bad product for a really long time. It's awesome, and it's so fun. And I think the most fun part of it, I think about last year when the Lions lost in the NFC title game. Dan Campbell's statement after the game was, I told the guys in the locker room, you might not get here again. Like, enjoy this because this might be the only time you get to do this, which was true and rang true and was the right thing to tell that team. Now, obviously, they're still rolling, but you look at San Francisco, right? It's never guaranteed. This is a historic year, a great year, Craig, and we're going to be even more optimistic in future years because of the cap money, because of Adam Peters, because of rebuilding this roster, because of the thought of Jayden growing and maturing. That's what's fun. It's not a one-off. It's not a fluke. This is arguably, the least talented Commanders team we're going to watch for the next 5 years.
100%. There are no guarantees, though. I mean, the Texans were like, we got it. Let's go. Let's make some big moves. And they won their division, but there's actually not something. They shouldn't even hang a banner for winning this year's AFC South. And you see how hard it is when the schedule gets harder and you have a target on your back and the whole deal, a year of film. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy the now. And I think it's been really fun to enjoy it this season. Michael, we've enjoyed having you on Mondays. We got one more regular season edition. We'll look forward to the playoffs with you next Monday. Happy New Year, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year to you. Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
All right, Michael Phillips, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. You can check his show out daily, 10 a.m. to noon on the free Odyssey app. Just search 910 The Fan. You got him. You got Awad, our old friend who used to produce The Junkies, is down there hosting. He does a great job starting at noon every day. I actually am on with Awad almost every week, so I enjoy going on with him. So check out their coverage down there in Richmond if you want a little bit of a change up to the fastball of what we're giving you here at the Team 980. When we get back, we'll take a look at the rest of the weekend in the NFL. We go around the NFL next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, I got to say, in the YouTube chat right now, again, interesting place. We're streaming live at the Team 980 on YouTube if you ever want to watch the show. And we had someone suggest that because of the problems that they're having at corner, put Tyler Owens there, an undrafted free agent safety who doesn't play corner. And our RS Swimmer 84, who we mentioned earlier, who also had a very silly take that I've already forgotten, says, I may have started a revolution of bad takes. Oops.